Thank you very much, Naufel. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great privilege for me to be here to talk about the Center for Child and Adolescent Mental Health in University of Ibadan, also known as the SICAM. And the title of my presentation is Building Capacity for Child and Adolescent Mental Health in Africa. Originally, it was the principal investigator and director of the center who was supposed to attend this meeting to give this talk, but unfortunately, she had another meeting in Tanzania, which overlaps with this conference, so she asked me to come in her place. And so, here I am. And I must say that I'm very impressed. I've been very impressed in the last 2 days listening to the wonderful work being done in the area of child and adolescent mental health here in South Africa. And I'm happy I have this opportunity to talk about what we're doing in another region of Africa. So looking at the history of SICAM, of child and adolescent mental health in Africa, we know that Africa has a predominantly youthful population. Of the 1.2 billion people on the continent, about 50% of them are below the age of 18. We know many of them live in very difficult circumstances, situations of extreme poverty, conflict, and all these increase their risks for mental health disorders. And even though there are few epidemiological studies on the continent, we know that about 1 in 5 children on the continent has a treatable mental health disorder. But despite the huge burden on the continent, there's really been no formal training for child and adolescent mental health on the continent, apart from the one that has been in South Africa in the last 3 decades. So how did SICAM come to be? In May 2010, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation made a call for applications to improve postgraduate training at the University of Ibadan. Professor Olayinka Omigbodun, who is the principal investigator of the project and also the current director of the center, seeing this as an opportunity to start training in West Africa, put together a proposal in collaboration with other researchers from Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. And a total of 54 applications were actually received by the MacArthur Foundation from the University of Ibadan. And this proposal made it to the top 3 and was eventually awarded a grant in December 2010 to begin training for child and adolescent mental health in Nigeria. So these are the collaborating institutions, 3 from Nigeria, 1 from Ghana, one from Sierra Leone, 1 from the United Kingdom, the US, and also from Goa, India. And basically, these institutions were to pool resources, share resources, provide students, faculty, and also training sites for the program. So what are the aims of SICAM? Basically, to cater to the needs of Africa and the developing world in the areas of training, research, and service in child and adolescent mental health. Specifically to supply Africa with skilled leaders who would provide culturally relevant and competent CAM care, expertise in the development of services, training of other professionals, carry out the much needed research in CAM on the continent, and also drive CAM advocacy and policy development. So this was primarily to be done through an 18-month Master of Science degree program in child and adolescent mental health, which we also call the MSc CAM. And in a few years after this started, another program evolved, which is the postgraduate diploma in child and adolescent mental health. And this was primarily for people who desired training in child mental health but didn't have the qualifications to do a Masters of Science degree program at the university. Apart from these 2 major programs, the center also runs annual workshops, seminars, short courses, and internships. So what are the components of these programs? That's primarily the master's program and the diploma program. So there are 2 semesters of intense coursework. There are weekly seminars, there's a strong clinical exposure, there's field work, and the master's students have to carry out, a research project. So they go back to their home bases and collect primary data for their research project. And those on the diploma program carry out an extended essay at the end of their 2nd semester. These are some of the core modules on the program. So we have developmental considerations, assessments in child and adolescent mental health, psychiatric disorders, interface of mental and physical health, psychosocial treatments, leadership, advocacy, policy, and service development. And this is a critical module on the program. Primarily, this program was designed to train leaders in the field of CAM on the continent. So what are some of the unique features of the program? Well, one is that we have faculty from 4 different continents of the world. Even though the core faculty of the program are at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, we also have guest faculty from North America, from Europe, and from Asia. And in the University of Ibadan, the core faculty members are from 7 different faculties, which includes the Faculty of Arts, Education, Law, Public Health, Clinical Sciences, Pharmacy, and Social Sciences. And these faculty are drawn from 10 different departments in the university, including Communication and Language Arts, Education, Forensic Medicine, Family Medicine, Public Health, Law, to mention a few. So this is just a typical training session. This is a session by Dr. Cornelius Ani, who is a guest faculty from the United Kingdom. He's actually one of our foundation faculty members. He was involved in the curriculum development, implementation workshop, and since the beginning of the program, he's come out at least twice every year to carry out training programs. I facilitate a lot of the programs that we run in the center. Other unique features of the program is that it's the first multidisciplinary program on the continent. So we have students from various disciplines learning and working together. We've had students from child development studies, family medicine, guidance and counseling, pediatrics, nursing, home science and management, psychiatry, physiotherapy, pharmacy, to mention a few. And what are some of the advantages of this? First, it's been found that when we all know that CAM work is multidisciplinary, and it's been found that when people from various disciplines learn and work together, it fosters teamwork and collaborative skills, fosters understanding and positive attitudes when they have to work together. Other unique features of the program are the opportunities for off-site training at world-class centers abroad. So embedded within the program is a 1-month observership program at the Boston Children's Hospital in the USA. One student is selected at the end of the 2nd semester to participate in this training. And this is just showing one of the students from the first cohort, Dr. Rotimi Adejumo, who spent 1 month at the Boston Children's Hospital. And here he's flanked by Professor Myron Belfer, a former president of the YACAPAP, who has done a lot of work in developing CAM services on the continent, and Dr. Patricia Ebeziako, who is the director of the liaison service at the hospital. Other opportunities for off-site training are participation in a leadership training program in Goa, India. So this is a 2-week leadership training program. And so also from each cohort, a few students are selected to participate in this program. And it's been a really wonderful experience. So what have been the achievements of CCAM so far? Even though we received approval for this project in December 2010, as I said earlier, there was a slight delay in the program actually taking off. The curriculum needed to be fully developed, funds needed to be released, we needed to have an implementation workshop, but finally, on January 8, 2013, 15 of us started the program. I was actually in the pioneer set. And we were from 3 countries from Africa, which included Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. And we set out on this journey for the first time in January 8, 2013. And exactly 18 months later, on June 16, 2014, we completed the program and were presented to the university community. So it might look like what is the achievement in completing this program in 18 months, but in the part of the world where I come from, many 18-month programs take a minimum of 24 to 36 months. So this actually was a great achievement for this program. And these are the first set of graduates from the program. And so in a record time, since 2013, that's about 4.5 years, 4 cohorts of students have been trained, and in a total of 67 camp professionals have been trained in this 4 cohorts. And they come from 9 different countries on the continent, including Eritrea, Ghana, Gambia, Kenya, Sierra Leone, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And this is just showing the areas where the students on the program come from. As we can see, the greatest impact has been in the West African sub-region. But we also have 2 countries from the East African sub-region and 2 from the Southern African sub-region. We have, as I said before, 19 more students currently in training, and in the new year we're expecting students from 3 new countries, Somalia, Rwanda, and Cameroon. And the reach of CCAM has also been significant within Nigeria. When we started this program, there were only camp services in about 3 regions of Nigeria, 2 in the southwest and 1 in the southeast. But today we have at least 1 camp professional from 16 out of the 36 states of the country, including 5 states in the northern part of the country, which is an area of great need. What has been the impact of CCAM on training? After our completion of our program, 4 of us from the first cohort were retained as faculty members. And in the second cohort, another two new faculty joined us. So together with the director of the center, we formed like the inner core faculty members who mainly drive the programs and run a lot of the workshops and other courses that we run at the center. Other students, Dr. Judy Kamau is from Kenya. She was in the second cohort of the SICAM, and she's now a member of faculty at the University of Kenya, Nairobi. Mr. James Koroma is originally trained as a nurse. He now lectures at the College of Medicine in the University of Sierra Leone. Dr. Selassie Adam is a psychiatrist in training. She was part of the second cohort, and on return to her country, she was part of the expert team who adapted the WHO Mental Health Gap Action Plan in Ghana, and she was also involved in the training of primary healthcare workers in her country. So impact of SICAM on services. When we started the center, we had just one weekly clinic for children and adolescents in Ibadan. But this has grown from a one-man clinic to 5 weekly clinics in Ibadan now. So we have a general clinic, we have a neurodevelopmental clinic, we have a joint clinic with pediatric neurology, and we have 2 community clinics. Apart from that, we also have an inpatient service, just an 8-bedded inpatient service, and a daycare service. One of the members of the cohort, of the first cohort, Dr. Yetunde Adeniyi, recently established a private center for children with special needs, which is known as the Early Development Learning and Care Center, and this collaborates with the SICAM and also serves as a training site for our activities. So what has the impact of SICAM on services in other parts of the country? This is a personal communication from Dr. Awusah, who works in Benin City, which is like Midwestern Nigeria. And since her completion of her program, she now places emphasis on going out into the community, working with the schools, carrying out advocacy for child and adolescent mental health. In Sierra Leone, on the completion of training, Mr. James Koroma, we actually have 6 trained professionals from Sierra Leone till date. But the team has mostly been led by Mr. James Koroma, who was initially trained as a nurse. And he arrived just at the end of the Ebola crisis in Sierra Leone. And as soon as he got there, he and his colleagues started providing psychosocial care to survivors of the Ebola crisis. Shortly after that, also, they had a major flood, where a lot of people were displaced from their homes. And he and his team were able to work with international organizations to provide psychosocial care for the survivors of this disaster. Apart from that, he and his team have been providing psychosocial care at the Oladurin Children's Hospital in Freetown, which is the one on the left. And in the last quarter of last year, 2016, they were finally given a room at the Oladurin Children's Hospital, and they now have the first CAM clinic in Sierra Leone, which is that one. I mean, very humble beginnings, but also very significant. In Ghana, we have the Dr. Kwabena Kusimensa, who finished his training just 3 months ago, has already established a CAM clinic. This started on the 8th of August, 2017, and this is just a memo detailing that. So he's planning to work with the pediatrics departments, have seminars with them to create awareness. He's looking to recruit members of the multidisciplinary team, and generally he's really very excited about the future of CAM work in Ghana. So apart from the impact of SICAM on services and on training, there's also been a lot of impact on research. Out of the 63 completed dissertations of the master's students at the SICAM, as of today, 11 have been published, most of them in open access journals. And all the students are the first authors of these publications, and they are also the corresponding authors. So I'm just going to show you some samples of some of the projects. So this is by Judy Kamau. She looks at pathways to care for children and adolescents accessing specialist care in Kenya. Mashudat Bello Mojid from Lagos, Nigeria, looked at the feasibility of a parent-mediated intervention for children with autistic spectrum disorder. Yetunde Adeniyi looked at the effect of a classroom-based intervention on the social skills of pupils with intellectual disability in southwest Nigeria. Rabi Ekore trained peer counselors in the process of starting a peer counseling service for college students at the University of Ibadan. Adiola Odugua looked at the effect of an innovative mental health training program on mental health-related stigma among in-school pupils in southwest Nigeria. Aishatu Abubakar, who is from the northern part of the country, looked at the prevalence and correlates of psychiatric disorders among Almajiris. Almajiris are a special group of street children who are found in the northern parts of many West African countries. And she compared this prevalence and correlates between them and children found in public primary schools, and found much higher rates of psychiatric disorders among them. Niro Okewale looked at the correlates of maternal depression and psychopathology among children attending clinic in Abeokuta, Ogun State. Jibril Abdulmalik looked at the effects of a problem-solving intervention and aggressive behaviors among primary school pupils in Ibadan, Nigeria. And I looked at the effectiveness of a brief school-based CBT program for depressed adolescents, also in southwest Nigeria. So these are very small studies. They're just the beginning. We hope we can get more funds to replicate some of these studies and have them done on a national scale. These are other selected dissertations, not yet published, but they're the first of their kind from their countries. So Ronita Luke from Sierra Leone looked at the correlates of mental and physical health in under 5-year-olds and their mothers in the slum area of Freetown, Sierra Leone. Sarah Conte looked at the mental health of adolescents in post-Ebola Sierra Leone. Kwabena Kusimenta in 2017 tried to establish normative data on the Ravens and Sloson's intelligence test for Ghanaian children, which, as far as I'm aware, has not been done till today. And Stephanos Haile from Eritrea looked at the prevalence and correlates of mental health problems among children and adolescents in Eritrea. Incidentally, Stephanos is the first health professional from his country to have any kind of training in child mental health. Okay, so the impact of SICAM on students. At the end of every program, students leave some comments about the program, how the program impacted them. So I just have some excerpts here. So Tunchama Friday from the set 1 says, it was tough throughout the duration of the program, but we all pulled through. The resilience to succeed would not have come true if not for Professor Olayinka Omigbodu, who is an epitome of excellence and resilience. She midwifed the program and nurtured our growth to the very end. It was wonderful and we are grateful. Jibril Abdulmalik, also from cohort 1, says it was a hectic roller coaster ride, but very rich in breadth and depth. It was neither an academic nor a professional master's, but a hybrid of the two. It is exactly the sort of program we need in Africa, where we necessarily have to wear several hats at the same time. Masamambu, who is a nurse from Sierra Leone, had this to say. She said, the program is very much needed. Even though I had trained and worked for several years as a nurse, I never understood that mental illness can occur in children and adolescents. I attributed it to demonic arts and evil spirits. Now that I have been well trained, it's my responsibility as a camp leader to create awareness. Olurum Ortimi Adejuma, also from Set 1, says, learning with my colleagues on the pioneer class was a very enriching experience, and valuable relationships were formed. I believe the relationships and the potentials they provide for future teamwork are just as important as the diverse tutorship we received. These are from Set 2. Kunle Omojola says, the MSc program has trained my hands to work, my feet to be quick, and my heart to be courageous, impacting me with values for living. Catherine Enison from Set 3 says, SICAM is not just an academic environment, it is a place of empowerment for exploits. Taking this course is the best decision I ever made. Samson Adepoju from Set 4 says, the program was loaded, outstanding, and inspiring. The content is superb and well delivered. It can only get better. I would like to say a big thank you to Professor Omigbodu for extending the opportunity of the training to me. It has opened my eyes, and I'm equipped and positioned to contribute more to the mental health system in Africa and the world at large. And Chuka Onoye from the first set of the postgraduate diploma says, SICAM University of Ibadan is more than an institute for learning. It is like a family working to solve the mental health needs of children and adolescents in Africa and beyond. So these are just pictures of the last cohort after their defense. They had a little dinner and party. As you can see, we in West Africa like very vibrant and bright colors. These are also the diploma students, the first set of the diploma students with their facilitator. And it says all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So despite the rigor and the intensity of the program, SICAM students also have time to relax. And this is the last cohort at a tourist attraction center in the southwest of Nigeria. So these are the comments of Dr. Wendy Vogel, the head of child and adolescent here in Children's Hospital, Cape Town. She was our first external examiner in 2014. And after the days she spent with us, these were her comments. She said, "This is an outstanding and unique program. And overall, the achievements are remarkable. The principal investigator, the faculty, and students are to be congratulated. The research projects are the first of their kind and will be very helpful for future service development and delivery." This is also a letter of appreciation from the head of department of the University of Maiduguri to Professor Migbodu. And apart from all these activities, there's also been significant impacts of SICAM on the community. Since 2014, every year on the Day of the African Child, which is June 16, we have a public lecture where we invite the general public to a symposium, and school students form a prominent feature of this program, and you can see them in their different school uniforms. And in 2016, this public lecture evolved into the first child mental health conference in Nigeria and in the West African sub-region. It was very well attended by over 100 delegates, and we had keynote speakers shown there in the picture from Nigeria, Tunisia, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the US. These are just some other sites of the 2016 conference. There was a special track for young people where they talked about mental health-related stigma, communication, and leadership skills. This is another cross-section of the last cohort on their public presentation on the Day of the African Child, June 16 this year. And these are all the graduating students, the master's students and the postgraduate students, the last cohort that just graduated. This is Professor Olayinka Omigbodu after the day's activities giving a press conference. And so despite all the achievements of SICAM, we cannot say that this program has been without challenges. Being in a low resource center, in a low resource setting, we have had our challenges. Some of them are the general poor infrastructure in the country, lack of stable power, water, poor roads. We know all these things affect training. And many times the principal investigator has had to use her own personal resources to be able to overcome some of these challenges. Also, we have poor funding of public institutions, including the universities. So there have been recurrent strikes in the university, but we at SICAM do not observe strikes. We cannot afford to observe strikes if we want to meet our targets. So work continues. And I know the director has sometimes jokingly said that if we cannot find classrooms to have lectures, we can move over to her house and we can have our lectures in her garden. But so far that hasn't had to happen. The bureaucracy and the corruption found in many of our public institutions also affect us. But I must say that the program is constantly being monitored and evaluated. So look for creative solutions to some of these problems. And we give constant feedback to the university authorities so that we can continue to maintain high standards for this program and to attract students from all over Africa. The population projections for Africa show that about 2 million babies will be born in Africa within the next 35 years, such that by mid-century, every 2 in 5 children in the world will live in sub-Saharan Africa. We could see this as a burden for Africa, but at the same time, we could see it as an enormous opportunity for economic and social growth. But we know this can only happen if the right investments are made in the health of these children, in their education, and in their protection. And for this, we need child mental health professionals working on the continent. So this is just a graph showing us these projections. Right now, as we can see, Asia has the highest population of under 18s. We're about here. But by 2050, Africa is going to take over. And if we come to the other graph, most of this population growth is going to come from West Africa and East Africa. As we can see, the populations of North Africa, South Africa, and Central Africa are estimated to remain quite stable. Okay, so in conclusions, I want to say that I think SICAM is strategically located in West Africa. As a beacon of light, as a beacon of hope, spreading light all over the continent. We can have child mental health professionals taking care of our children on the continent. And no longer will Africa be called the dark continent, because we know, as it's been projected, that the future of the world is Africa. Africa is the future of the world. And so I just want to leave you with these words. These are the words of Kwabena Kusimensa, who is from the last cohort. He's from Ghana. And he says, at the foot of the vision, labor, and perseverance of one woman, today we all stand. 88 camp professionals and counting for Africa. Morning has finally broken on Camp Work in Africa. With strength of will and humility of heart, there is nothing that we in Africa cannot achieve. In this modern 21st century, the sky has become only the starting point. And I think we also need to acknowledge the MacArthur Foundation for choosing, for their vision and for choosing to invest in training of child mental health professionals on the continent, because without them, this dream would never have become a reality. So this is a website address for SICAM if we want to know more about SICAM. I also have some brochures and pamphlets about some of the activities of the center. I thank you for your attention.